All right, yes, I'm super excited to be here. My name is Wendy Watley. I live and work here in San Diego. I work by day and have for many years doing design work, graphic design. Right now I'm working for Intuit. They're a great company here in San Diego, great people, and I really enjoy the life work balance that I'm able to have there, which also obviously gives me a lot of time to work on the projects I want to work on. I'm going to forget what I have to say for a little bit until I get going here, but I did this presentation at Intuit. They invite people sometimes to speak about what they do on the side. And so I put this presentation together about a year ago, and I don't really consider myself a big talker, but when I got the email for San Diego Design Week, and when I read that the talk was about inspiration, it really spoke to me in a deep way, because I feel like that really fuels all of these projects and these things that I do on the side that I really do for myself for fun. So I'm doing it again today. It's great to be able to reuse this deck and to share the story with, I know I have some friends joining today, and for those of you that I don't know, thanks so much for your time and for being here today. All right, next slide. Go. Okay. So I have a few slides I put together just to show overall what my work is like. I created this brand, Things of This Nature, maybe like 15 years ago. It's an expression my dad says a lot, and so and it ties in very well with the work that I do. I grew up in Virginia, and I spent a lot of time in the woods, building forts and playing in the creek with my friends, and I think all the things growing there really inspired my upbringing and continue to be a huge inspiration for what I work on today. And so it is kind of fun to see how that translates in different media now. I've been, worked in watercolor for a very long time, and actually didn't start doing ceramics until we moved to San Diego. The weather here is very well suited for setting up a studio. My husband set up a full ceramic studio here. He's an artist as well. But yeah, I've done paper. I started doing paper recently, and I've done some metal work. And yeah, I just think it's fun, I guess. I think part of me likes to solve problems and work things out in different medium. And it's just exciting and inspiring to do something you've never done before. This piece on the left, the border on that, I created that border with a rubber stamp. I wanted to add like another texture element to, the watercolor pieces. These are all really detailed. As you can see, I haven't painted watercolor in maybe like 10 years. So even now, looking back at these pieces, I'm kind of like, wow, that's really, it's really detailed. But this piece on the left, so I designed that border in Illustrator, and then I just hired a rubber stamp company to make it, and then I just printed it. I really got excited about the contrast of showing, I think when you're looking at something detailed and you put something beside it that's maybe a little rougher, it really shows off the details. So I'm really excited how that piece came out. All right, and then here's a few more pieces. Most of those pieces, watercolor pieces, are pretty small. This is a bigger series I did. I have 4 of these prints. Actually, they're hanging right here in my studio. So some pieces I've sold, some pieces I still have. And then also outside of that, I've gotten into digital illustration recently. And then some of the images on the right are from a book I published a couple years ago. So I'm going to talk about that as well. And then I make a ridiculous number of cards for my friends, for Mother's Day, for birthdays. I share these because I think it's kind of like a weird little practice of just sometimes getting off the couch at night after I've had a long day, and I'm like, oh, my friend's birthday's coming up. I really need to make them a card. And it gets me in the studio. I sit down and I can kind of just do something fun. It can be kind of stressful to just come up with a thing. Like you have to have an idea, right? You got to like go, what am I going to paint? Sometimes I repaint things I've already done, but I do think you know, even though these cards do kind of stress me out in a funny way, I do think they're good as just a way to like do a thing, you know. So, okay, so I'm gonna start with my most recent projects, which has been paper, and I'm gonna kind of go backwards and talk about kind of how I got into each one. So I think it's really interesting where ideas kind of lead and lead to. So this is my work right now. I work with this one gallery up in New Hampshire. I feel very grateful to have found them. They show a lot of small work. My work is small, so it felt like a really great fit, and I'm just very grateful for them. So I send them pieces once a year for a group show. So this is what I'm doing right now. These are the pieces I just shared with you that I've sent to them. So I'm going to talk about kind of how I got into this. So it's crazy that it was just early last year, but you know, inspiration comes from everywhere. I was, at the time, it was like early in 2021. I had just published my children's book, which I'm going to talk about. And I think I was kind of like not hooked into any art. Like the holidays had happened and I was kind of like living life in January, probably cleaning out my drawers and stuff and closets. And I saw this wreath in Paper Source. And I think paper has gotten a little bit trendy. And so I just kind of thought it was cool. And I was just started like thinking about it. Like I wasn't thinking literally like, oh, I'm going to go home and make paper. It was just like, oh, that's really neat. So I was making cards and I got tired of painting. I was like, I'm just gonna cut out some paper, you know, and try to do something just different to mix it up. And I mean, the card on the right there, it doesn't even look that much like anything to me right now looking at it, but at the time I was really excited about it. And I was just using scraps in my studio and I was like, I'm just gonna make this thing with hearts, you know, but it did excite me a little bit. And then I had a birthday card to make for a friend, and that turned into this piece that was just kind of abstract, where I had never done this before, and I was just kind of making up some shapes. I got immediately very excited about the shadows and obviously the depth there, and I just started to feel like this could be a thing, you know, this could be a thing I'm gonna get excited about. So I bought a quilling kit. I knew about quilling. Didn't really want to do quilling, but I think when you're going broad on your ideas, you're like, you know, you don't know what things are gonna manifest and what things are gonna sort of attach to you and lead you somewhere. So I bought this kit. I did end up using a lot of the little tools that were in there, so that ended up being really helpful. And then I just started like, you know, figuring it out. I started like cutting things out. Initially, I really wanted to do some things bigger because I had painted for so long, very tiny, and I really wanted just to work with a bigger space. That didn't really end up happening. It felt kind of awkward, but again, here I'm just like trying to figure out, do I want color? Do I want colored paper? Do I want to watercolor some paper and then cut that out? You know, what is this, which things here are interesting to me, and what is the language of this work that I'm creating going to be? You can see there in the middle and on the piece on the right, I have some hole cut, punched holes. And I knew pretty quickly that I didn't want anything on here that was pre-cut, so to speak. So I was like, if I'm doing tiny things, I'm going to cut those myself. So yeah, again, I'm figuring out a brand new medium. I'm just making little things and I have no idea what works. I don't know what is folding something look like. How tiny can I cut something? Can I draw on it too? Is that cool, or do I like that? You know, I'm just really literally here trying to create this language and really develop like, what are the rules of this language and how do I create these pieces in a way that sort of make up a thing that goes together and feels like something that comes from me and from what I do. So So just to sort of literally, how do you do that? Well, I saw this this image on Pinterest of this jackfruit, and it's such an interesting object, even abstractly. And then sometimes I'm lucky and I get like an image that'll just pop into my head. And so this image in the middle just popped into my head, inspired by the jackfruit and this layout specifically. So I drew it out. I'm not terribly inspired by sketching things. When I sketch something, it just looks ugly to me because I'm not spending time on it. And it just, I don't know, I can't get into it. It's kind of a funny thing. I will draw because I kind of have to in situations like this. But so yeah, I drew this out. I knew that I already had the idea in my head. So I was like, this is, I felt good about it. And then I took it into Photoshop. I don't do that anymore, but at the time when I was beginning this, I didn't know how to do any of this. So I'm just like, oh, I'll take it into Photoshop. Photoshop is great because you can scale things, and that obviously with paper, you can't really scale things, you're cutting them out. So it was really helpful initially for me, kind of like figuring out how I was doing what I was doing. So yeah, I printed out after I got it into Photoshop, and then, or I may have traced it. I started tracing stuff too. So then when I traced my shape, I could just literally cut it out. I used graphite paper. So I have my thing, I lay the graphite paper on, and then I can just have my thing that I cut out and know what I'm cutting. So on the left there, that was really just a prototype. I hadn't, it was the first one I made. And again, like I'm trying things, like you can see there's some watercolor in there. And I'm feeling good about it. And then on the right there, you can see the finished piece of how I evolved it. So like the piece on the left, the little like round things, the mushroomy, like I just didn't think it was enough. So I decided to add leaves. And so, yeah, I think for me, like those prototypes are so helpful. Even when I used to do watercolor, I would paint a piece multiple times because I'm just working out the issues. And to me, I don't know, there's no other way to do it than to just do it. You got to just do it. You got to work it out and figure it out, especially if it's something you've never done before. So as I was working on these pieces, I had them on this dresser over here by the light, like flat. And I really loved the light, but I knew that when I hung them, the lighting was not going to be the same. And this was actually the very first piece I made. So I quickly bought like a shadow box frame, and I was like, what is this going to look like on the wall? Is this going to be like boring? Is it going to be really flat with the lighting in this box? What am I going to have to add to this? How can I make this look interesting? So yeah, you can see on the right, it's subtle, but for me, I was like, okay, like I'm definitely going to need to add some other texture. And that's when I got into adding like pencil or watercolor work to it. So here's just a shot of the back. Obviously, I have strips of paper. I'm just cutting them out and just have to glue them on the back. There's no like easy way around it. I kind of take glue and I kind of smear it across a piece of paper. And then when I cut out the little strips, I basically like touching the edge of those pieces of paper onto the glue. And that's kind of the easy way. I actually saw that tip on YouTube for quilling. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So that's how I just stick kind of the piece on the glue and then get the glue on the item and then glue it on the thing. So this was the last round of pieces I did last year, just to show my table. I have things, I'm just working them out. It's hard to, again, back to sketching, like I struggle with sketching. I do try to sketch because I do think it's helpful, but also like I can make things with paper that I would never sketch. And I can sketch things that I can't make with paper. So it's kind of a weird back and forth that I'm constantly like, oh, but I feel like I can make use of the material of paper much better if I make something out of paper that I can't sketch and I go, oh, that's cool. I didn't know I could make that. And then that kind of fuels what I'm doing. I thought it would be fun to look at these and kind of see which of these turned into a piece. So I think this top two, I don't even know, like sometimes I'm just not feeling it, even though like that top one on the left, it looks pretty done, but I guess I just decided I didn't like it. But then those other two like worked out, and you can see on the bottom, this bottom two on the right kind of like turned into one. And then this round, when I started this last round of work, this was probably like in March. The work was due in the end of August. I really wasn't very inspired to start this last series. I don't really know why. I just kind of like, it really felt like work. And sometimes it is work. Sometimes it's work to just show up and do the thing you're doing, and it's not fun. So I just laid out some paper. I had all these prototypes, and I was just kind of putting stuff out. Like a lot of these pieces were leftover scraps from last time. And I'm just kind of like seeing like what's gonna excite me. Does anything here feel good? And yeah, you can see here, I really only ended up with two here that I ended up finishing, but I thought it's kind of fun to see that. And so here's one of those pieces. I'm just showing you like some different stages. On the top left, I thought for a little while maybe I would paint the backgrounds. The backgrounds in the final piece are paper, but I was like, paper is only in the color it's in. So if I painted it, then that would give me so much more opportunity to use any color I wanted. So I did that, and I might end up doing that again. It's not that it didn't work. I just think I was like not ready to do it maybe. And I really liked the brown paper I ended up using. So I may go back to that at some point. So here's the final pieces. It's funny, you don't really get to see your work together. I framed them all and sent them off. And I sold one right away, which was great. But then when they hung them on the gallery wall, there were only 5. So I'm glad I took this picture. It's nice to see the pieces all together. And I'll pause here if there's any questions, I think, and take a sip of water here.
You all have talking permission, like Zoom calls it, so you can also ask your questions verbally if you feel more comfortable.
Hi, yes, I have a question. I put it in the chat as well, but I was curious, Wendy, why did most of your work seems very small, and it's beautiful and it's very delicate. And I'm just curious what led you to work so small.
I have no idea. I think I've always been just attracted to small things. I think it's just a personality quirk. Honestly, I think that's really the honest answer. I admire, I go to galleries and I see bigger paintings, and I really admire that. I do have sort of like a desire in me to do some bigger stuff that I really haven't manifested, I guess. But I think it's just sort of a quirk of myself. That's I can't think of another way to explain it. Good question. All right, I'm going to keep on.
Wendy, I have a question.
Yeah.
So how does this work is beautiful, and it's it looks like it really has you engaged, and you're very good at documenting and sort of steering your own process. I love that. Sometimes people need mentors or teachers or a group to kind of guide you through the process, and seems like you're very able to do that on your own. How does this work connect to your work at Intuit, if at all?
Not at all. I mean, I do this past year, we've hired an illustrator, and I'm helping sort of review illustration work, which is a very recent thing. But I don't really see them as connected. I definitely, like, if I only had my day job, I would not be happy. And I know that I'm not happy. I've always made artwork forever, since I was a kid. And so for me, it's just like a natural part of who I am. So I guess I don't really see a lot of connection there. If that answers your question.
Yes, sure. That's fine. So it's just what nurtures you outside of work.
Yes, exactly.
There's another question on the Q&A. Wendy, what kind of glue works for this kind of paperwork? I also work in paper and find adhesives to be a challenge.
Yeah, that was another thing I learned from the quilling video I watched very early on. I mean, oh, here it is. It's just like this tacky, it's called Fast Grab tacky glue. It works super well because it's kind of thick. And I definitely have some other glues that don't work so good. And then I also use, I have these glue pens, which are super common, that work really well to glue tiny things. So these are the main things I use.
Great,
All
thank
right.
you.
Yeah. Okay, so, whoops, my slide skipped, but that's okay. So now I'm going to talk about my book that I published. I did not set out to like, I'm going to publish a book on Amazon. It was more like, well, I'll go through what it was like. Okay, so I think I just have a natural desire to figure things out, as I was saying. So I've done only just a little bit of illustration work, digital, and I am definitely, feel like I kind of know what I'm doing, but I'm definitely a little bit insecure about my digital work. I haven't done a ton of it, and it's so easy to go on social media and feel intimidated by the things you see there. But anyway, so in early 2020, when the pandemic happened, I was actually pretty excited, scared, kind of compartmentalizing things, but a part of me was, I knew that this was a lot of time that I was going to have, which I'm always trying to get is time. And so I was like, I'm going to do some new projects. So I've always wanted to make stickers, and I've always loved stickers. I've never made any. So I had been designing these or drawing these bugs, and I was like, these would be so good for stickers. So I got really excited about that. I went to Illustrator pretty quickly, made these bugs, and was just really into these bugs for a while. Made a bunch of stickers, gave them away to anyone that would let me send them some on just friends, just printed them at Moo. Again, it's so amazing to me, the wealth of things you can sort of have done, like have printed. You can publish a book, you can have something silkscreen, you can have a mug printed with, I'm just like blown away by the access for these things. It's just so fun. So I made the stickers. I was really into it. I started making more stickers, just random ones. And then I was kind of like, what do I really, this is like digging deep on a sticker, but hey, I was like, what do I really want on a sticker? I was like, I love green from nature. I love mushrooms and a frog. So I did this sticker in the bottom. And then somehow I was like, I had done the bug sticker. So I was kind of like thinking about my design to-do list, because again, still quarantine time. And I was like, I would really love to make a book. It would be really fun to have a set of stickers and a book. We used to go up to LA for this LA art book fair. I don't think they've had it in a few years, but since COVID, but it's so inspiring. There's this whole like indie side of just artists. They'll just have a table and they have these little zines that they staple together. Some are more sophisticated than others, but I just love when somebody just puts their self out there. When you walk up to their table, you can really see this person and see their work and all the forms it takes. And I think I'm just inspired by that to kind of like do a book and some stickers, and that felt very kind of like inspired by that fair. So I just started sketching it out. I like what, animals would I do, and I had some layouts that kind of came to my mind. So these are the ones, again, I don't know why I like to see, like, these are the ones that made it and the ones that didn't. So I scaled stuff up, and I was an illustrator, which I kind of know Illustrator, but definitely learned some more on this project. And the book title itself, it kind of came together, I guess, because I had done Bug Friends. I was like, oh, Forest Friends, done. And I started scaling up these images I had made. And I don't know why, the story kind of came to me kind of easily, because I was like, oh, it'll just be a story about meeting these friends of the forest. And I do have some passion for words, so that part kind of came together, not too difficult. So I scaled them up, and I didn't know, if they would look okay. Like, I had never done this before. These graphics are really simple. I was really attracted to the style that I would never do this style. I would never paint this style because but I love that I can take advantage of the vector tools and create this look that's very, very graphic, which I guess appeals to the more designer side of me. But I wasn't sure if it would be enough, but I felt okay about it. And then I just started, I just kept working on it. And then I printed a book just with Google Photos. I just uploaded my images, and I'm very into prototyping. I wanted to feel the pages. I wanted to read through the story. I wanted to see how the layouts kind of came together in a row as you're going through the book. How are the colors laying out? And I was feeling okay about it. There's always part of me that is very insecure and yikes, I don't know if this looks good enough. And there's a part of me that kind of doesn't care, because I think I'm fueled by the fun of it. And my husband's an artist too, so we're both always trying things. And so I'm always kind of oh, yikes, and oh, okay, whatever, I'm having fun. So I know it's kind of a funny balance to try to do. So here's how the final cover came out. And as is always true with art, and even though I definitely am getting better at reminding myself this, but while you're working on it, I don't know, for me, I don't like the way things look because they're not finished. And so while I'm working on it, it's it looks okay, but you know what? If you keep working on it, it looks better, which doesn't really sound like a profound insight, but it's really true. It really does look better if you keep working on it. So I thought I would show too just more of the process with the animals. It's just always funny. Some things come easy and things don't. So there's animals on here. I just did it one time and I'm great. And other animals where I was super fretting over the four-legged guys on the left, really trying to, I wanted this really abstract quality to the animals, this really graphic quality. I wanted them to all be black and white because I wanted them to have kind of a combined visual element through the story against these backgrounds. But I really fretted over them, and eventually I got there, but it really, those animals in particular gave me a lot of heartache. And then, yeah, the fish and the duck did not make the cut, but there's my original frog, which I still really like up there. So yeah, here's some of the animals. And it's funny too, over time, I think with work, another sort of insecurity thing with oh, there's no one when you're adult to tell you if anything's good, you don't know. And I feel good that over time, I feel, looking at these, it's only been a year or so, but with artwork, I think sometimes looking back at things is really valuable. And I still felt all right, these are cool. These are not bad. So here's some of my layouts that I did. I really tried to, again, with each of these spreads, I really wanted there to be kind of an overall look, with the frog and the grass, the hedgehog guy with the, underground with all the browns. So yeah, anyway, pretty happy with how it came out. There's my book that I printed on Amazon, and then those are my stickers over there together. That was kind of my original concept, was to have those two things together, and I did it. So again, once I was kind of getting to be close to done, or I don't know, halfway through, I was like, well, I can't Google Photos a book to my friends, I was like, oh, duh, of course I had a friend who published, you just upload a PDF. Again, it's another one of those things to me in this modern era where it's just amazing you just literally upload a PDF. That just blows my mind. And then my family members in Virginia can just order a book and it gets printed. If you open the book, it'll tell you where it's printed, and I don't know, the quality isn't great. I still have kind of a dream of going to like an indie publisher and having them print my book on nice paper. I would really love to see that. But again, it's great to be able to have access to that. You might be wondering if I've sold any. I am 1000% confident the only people that have bought my book are all of my friends and family. And thank you to all of you and people on Instagram that I know. There's billions of books on Amazon. I've read tons of forums. I haven't really cared about selling them. Again, for me, it was about fulfilling like a artistic idea. So I do know that if you publish more books, you're more likely to get more traffic and more views, but I don't know that I will do that. Who knows? All right, that was my book talk.
Wendy, there's a question on the chat for you.
Sure.
Did you have a different process for creating the backgrounds in the book versus the objects themselves? And how did that composition come together?
A different process for creating, say that again?
If you had a different process for creating backgrounds than the objects themselves.
Then like my paper pieces?
Yeah. I think, Beth, do you want to maybe clarify?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had a different process for just creating the backgrounds of the book versus the friends, I guess, the foreground pieces. Like, what was the composition and how did you come to pull all of that stuff together?
Trying to think back. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I think just I did, as I've said before, I'm not great at sketching. I definitely will go to sketching if I feel stuck, but I'm fortunate sometimes that I will just be able to visualize what I want to do. Also just, in Illustrator, being able to move objects around pretty quickly. The style is pretty simple, so I was able to move those assets around pretty easily in Illustrator too. So I don't know, it's interesting with the book. I don't feel I have a harder time sort of remembering the process for that as I do with other things I haven't really thought about. It's a good question.
She also asks about your compositions and how they come together.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think just, when you're designing a layout, I think part of that is just the variety. So from one spread or one page to the next, so just making sure that it's interesting and you have variety. So I think that's one thing. So like if you have a page that has grass, maybe you want the next page to have water or something underground. So I think that's part of what fuels those different ideas. And then thinking about sort of the linear quality, graphic quality of each section. Yeah, like this one's going to be leaves, it's going to be overlapping. I want wood, so I'm doing something very vertical. So yeah, I think those are kind of the themes and elements that were kind of coming together for me.
Thank you, Wendy.
Of course. So next up is all about being patient and sticking with things. So going back a little further, in 2014, again, we just moved to San Diego. We were very excited to be here. My husband grew up here, and the weather is wonderful. And we started setting up a studio. And I just went out there one day, of course, you know, you have a ceramic studio and you're gonna like, oh, what could I make? And I had done a little bit of ceramics before, just taking classes, but not too much. So of course I'm gonna make a rock with some mushrooms on it. I mean, obviously. But yeah, I did go down the ceramics path. I started making pieces. The gallery that I was working with, I was sending them watercolor, and I started sending them ceramics. And it's funny looking back at these older pieces because I kind of cringe a little bit, but I just stuck with it and kept making them. And I think for this, when I look at these, you know, sort of a natural, you always hear about the 10,000 hours. I mean, if you keep doing something, you're just naturally gonna get better at it, right? And it's definitely true with something as physical as ceramics is, with, you know, literally making things with your fingers and hands. These are just a couple more pieces. This piece on the left didn't work, it cracked, but I still really like it. I have it, but yeah, some of the mushrooms broke off. On the right is a box I made. I have a few other, or I'm going to talk about the boxes a little bit more in a minute. And then just a piece of the greenware before it's fired, and then the piece on the right after it's fired. And this is my work setup. So I have things kind of high since the pieces are small. I kind of want them right in front of me. So I have had it kind of raised up, and this is my little table. My husband had the other end of the table. I no longer have the space. Once I moved out from ceramics, he just took over the whole table, as he should. Some more shots after being bisqued. And then here's some images of them going in the kiln. And then, so yeah, I started getting into, I think I skipped one. Yeah, I started making some boxes. I was really intrigued again by the idea of trying to figure out how to do that and how to form like that inner lip and make the lid fit and everything. I was able to make some successfully, but I ran into a ton of issues. You have to fire the lid and the base together, or they will work differently through the drying process and firing. And then I had so many problems with this, as you're seeing, like they were just kind of off. So eventually I just abandoned it, which was a bummer because I really just thought they were really neat, but I just couldn't do it. So yeah, I mean, it's natural when you're going through and trying to do different things, you're gonna run into problems, you know. The bottoms of them, took me a while to kind of figure out how much you had to hollow out. But then I wanted them to look more finished. So then I finally realized I could just carve it out and then kind of add a bottom and close it back up. So I ended up doing that, which looked a lot cleaner. And then here's some of just some of the pieces that I sold and sent to the gallery. And then, you know, I would make random things on the side that didn't work. Usually I feel like the things I made on the side just didn't. It's hard to make. You think, oh, you have a ceramic studio, you make mugs. It takes so much to make even a simple thing. I made that little plate over there, and then I have no idea why, but it kind of bubbled. And then I made these vases that literally do not hold water. If I fill them with water, the water kind of leaks out of the side, like slowly through I guess that this clay I was using is called paper clay. I mean, it fires like a normal clay, but I don't know. I was so frustrated, and I didn't want to spend more time making vases. I was like, I'm done with that. So it's kind of funny. All right, that was ceramics. So should I pause? Are there other questions? Oops. Why did that happen?
I have a question for you, Wendy.
Yes.
Do you have a kiln at home?
Yes. one of the reasons we bought this property is because we have a separate shed studio out back, which is pretty big. And so, yeah, when we moved here, my husband had been doing ceramics in Austin at like a city, there's like a city facility where they have classes in a studio. And then when we moved here, we just couldn't find the same thing here. And we live out here in Escondido. So we were pretty quickly like, oh, we should just buy a kiln. And we actually have 2 kilns. We had a gas kiln, an electric kiln, and we have a pottery wheel, and we have a slab roller, and he uses all of that for his ceramics. So yeah, it's been great and creatively a lot of fun for both of us.
Wow, wonderful. That's
Yeah.
great that you share that.
It is, it's really nice. I'm very grateful for that. And then, so for a little while, I did get into metal. I took a class down at Maker Place, which I don't think exists anymore, but there's obviously always lots of fun places to take classes. I highly encourage you to do that too, for just trying new materials. I had never heard of this stuff called metal clay. And it has metal in it, and it has clay material. And then when you fire it in a kiln, like a small kiln like that, it burns off those pieces, and then you're left with a piece of metal. So I took that class, and guess what? I got really excited about it and really into it. And I bought this little kiln, and I had so many problems firing these pieces. So when you fire them, that you bury them in carbon, like I can't remember what it's called, but it's like little granules of carbon in like a little tray, and you basically bury them in layers. And you can see here, I made notes. I was having all this like bubbling and stuff. And it's really frustrating, right? I spent a lot of time making these little tiny pieces, and they just didn't work. I actually went to the instructor's house, and I was like, hey, and I showed him what I was doing. And he's like, kind of like, I don't know what's going on. And so I think I just like, I'm done, I can't anymore. So I gave up. I did, while I was in the metal headspace, I guess, I did decide to take a metal smithing class, because it's just interesting to me. I mean, jewelry is something that's so common, and I was just fascinated by like, how do you make something in jewelry metal? So I took a class, and it was super fun, super interesting. I really gravitated toward this metal. It's called the lost wax process, where you carve something out of wax, and then you basically cast it. And it's just super interesting. I retook the class like 4 times. I really, really loved it. I made a lot of jewelry I don't wear, but these were like ideas I wanted to execute. They're kind of chunky, but I just wanted to make them, So yeah, here's one of the big rings I made. And this is the one I wear every day. So I got that out of it, which is cool. All right, I think now, so I think I just have a few thoughts here on a few slides to kind of wrap up with that I wanted to share. I kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's just an interesting thing about the role between inspiration and discipline, because there's also like it's fun when you're inspired. It feels good, and it's exciting when you really feel like doing something and you're inspired to do it. And I think that can be true with so many things in life, whether you're cooking a recipe or just trying something new. And I think the other piece that goes with it is really discipline, which is really just showing up and doing it. And there are plenty of times when I don't feel like doing it. It's kind of like going to the gym, like I don't want to go to the gym or exercise. And then when you do it, you always feel better, and you never regret it. You never like, oh, I wish I hadn't gone on that walk. You never say that. So it is kind of the same thing. There's times when I'm just like, oh, I don't want to, I worked all day. I don't want to go do whatever. But then I come in here, I start doing something. And sometimes I really don't want to do it, and then I just stop. But sometimes, most of the time I'll come in here to work a little, even if I just work for 30 minutes, it is kind of like a balance to working at a job all day. And it is kind of a thing that I just really enjoy. It really does bring me a lot of happiness. And then this is something I wish I don't remember where I might have learned about this at work. I feel like as part of just the design process. And I wish I had known about it sooner because I think it really unveiled something for me. I was kind of like, oh, I never really thought about what the creative process meant or looked like, or heard anyone really talk about it. But this really, really deeply spoke to me and really kind of unlocked something. So I made my own version. Mine looks more like this, which is like, I'm so excited. And then I kind of have another dip, which is like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I get really excited again. And then, yeah, why am I doing this at all? Like, I could just go to a movie or go shop at Target. Like, why am I stressing about this? And then I wish I don't end up on the other one. It's like, this is awesome. I don't know if I end up there. I end up feeling very satisfied and proud that I've created the thing. I do still struggle with insecurity, but at the end of the day, as I was saying, I do enjoy all of this work. And so I try to end up in a good place with it. But again, I wish I'd known about this sooner. This is normal. And I remind myself of this all the time. I mean, if I started making something today, I would just be like struggling and I would just be reminding myself like, this is normal. This is part of the process. Like you can't make a thing and not go through this. Like you can't. So you're going to have to just sort of try and make peace and try and just be aware that this is a part of it. I think just thinking about kind of why I make things, like I'm not very good at the hustle of making art. I don't show at a bunch of galleries. I didn't quit my day job. I don't have thousands of followers on Instagram. I am much better at making the thing and focusing on this element that I thrive on than I am about getting the word out. Even like I struggle to even promote this talk. But that's okay, you know, like I'm content and I feel like I've achieved a good balance. There were times in my younger years where I really struggled thinking like I would try to quit my job and do art full time. But I don't know. I think I just realized that I'm happy. Like this is okay. This is okay just like it is with me working a job and doing art. Like that is a perfectly good thing to do. So I've definitely made peace with that and I'm kind of in the groove now and not so much having like these soul searching moments that I had at other times in my life. And then this other one is just about, I think creativity is really kind of a vulnerable, pure thing and something to protect. And for me, I'm very careful about social media. I know that's a popular topic, but I literally won't follow artists really. It just makes me feel bad. Like if I look at a bunch of artists on Instagram, I feel bad about myself. It's not that direct, but it's like, oh, they have so much more time than I do, or they're doing this full time, or they've done this more than I have, or whatever, all the things that you think. And so I just know that that's bad for me. And so I think it's just kind of learning the things that maybe you want to be more creative, then you have to just pay attention to the things that might be fighting you or maybe aren't good for you and try to nurture the things that are so that you can be in a good headspace to do your work and to do your best things. That's it. Thank you so much for coming. It's so nice. I know we're like right at time, but we did start off with some technical issues. So I really appreciate everybody coming. Really means a lot. And definitely open it up if anyone has questions.
Wendy, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your creative process. This being able to show like even like, you know, your process pieces and be able to talk through like how you got from here to here and then how you experimented with this other thing or this other technique or other element like that. that was really, really amazing to see. And and a lot of us, I think, like when we're creating something, we don't necessarily think about documenting that. you know. So I really do appreciate that. I'm a designer in my day job as well, so I feel you.
Yeah, I mean, I take so many pictures of, and when I'm working on layouts and I take pictures of work, it's so helpful to be able to see it. If I'm at a restaurant later and I want to look at a thing I'm working on, it's great to look back at it. I make albums, in Google Photos all the time of things I'm in process of. And I guess it's just something I find really, really helpful. So I definitely encourage you to do that too, as you're going through and making things. Thanks for coming today and thanks for the comment.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Wendy.
Yeah, thank you.
So there's a question in the chat if this presentation will be available, and the answer is yes. I have been recording it, and next week we will be uploading it to San Diego Design Week website, and it will be on the website for the full year. So you can watch it anytime and recommend it to friends. And yes, so inspiration for the whole year. I think that your presentation, Wendy, really addressed the topic of Design Week in a wonderful way. And you're a great presenter, and I agree. You're awesome documenting your process, and we really appreciate you sharing your vulnerable moments and the tough parts and the mistakes and the successes equally. That was really nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be part of Design Week.
Anybody else? Other questions? I have here this was awesome. Thank you for explaining your connection to nature. Oh, can you talk about why sketching is not your thing? It seems you have an ideation process.
I don't know. It's so funny. Like I think it's because it sounds so weird, but it doesn't look good. Like sketching something is so rough, and I think I'm delighted when I see things that look good to me. And so when I'm sketching, I'm trying to work it out, and I do sketch, you know, I do see it as a tool to work out problems. I do, because I kind of have no choice. I'm like, oh, let me like draw this out and see what I think. But I don't know. It's just funny. Like I just have like a weird thing where I just don't feel drawn to it. I have had times where I've tried to keep more of a sketchbook. And I have drawings I've done in sketchbooks. I try to like slow down and really focus sometimes and like, I don't know. I think like get back in touch with just the simple joy of doing a drawing like in a sketchbook. My husband he does a lot of sketching, and he's always kind of like, oh, you should like sketch it out. And I don't know, I just have kind of a different relationship with it. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to describe. I'm always thinking about it.
Thank you. There's another question. What advice do you have for young artists?
I'm not the person to ask if I guess, you know, it's such a broad question that I think it depends on what you're doing. I think if I were to go back in life, would I have tried harder to, you know, when I went to college, I was very much like I wanted to be able to afford my own apartment, my own life. So I had other friends that were going to study sculpture, painting, but I was like, I need to get a job and have an apartment. So I'm studying graphic design because I knew I could get a job doing that. And that worked out well for me. I think there's a part of me that's sort of practical. So I think there may be other people, if you're more free-spirited and courageous, maybe you can make that work for you and if you wanted to pursue a career in painting or in sculpture and some of those other fine arts. So I think it's just about like finding that balance that works for you and personally too, and artistically. And I think you just gotta you know, again, like do stuff, make things, you gotta kind of figure it out and go through it.
Great. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you for bearing with us with the technical glitches. And we'll send, Wendy will send an email to your list when the video is up so that people who might have missed it because of the link, they can go back and watch it on the website.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.